everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sober in Seattle. And we are just really excited today to talk to Dave O. And so I first met Dave O, I'm going to say at the beginning of the pandemic. I was introduced to Dave, and our paths crossed here at Greater Seattle Intergroup. And he just really stepped up to help out with some things that needed some help here at Intergroup to bring us into the 21st century, as it were. And we're forever grateful to Dave for helping us out with that and Night Watch. And so, hey, Dave, how are you today?
I'm good, Lara. It's good to hear your voice. Good to talk again.
And this is also, I have to say, this is the first time that we are doing a Zoom podcast or using the remote option that we have available to us. And so I appreciate Dave stepping up to help with that too. So thank you for that. So Dave, I just wanted to give a little bit of history. How did you get involved with Night Watch and service at Greater Seattle Intergroup?
Let's see. Like you said, I came out to Seattle in January of 2019 to work on a book and find someone to do a website. I took a road trip from Billings, Montana to the end of South America, and then I had an idea for a website for years, and then I'd kind of sketched some stuff out for the website, and I came out to Seattle to write the book and find someone to do the website that's connected to the book. Anyway, I came out January 2019. So friends of the family had a house right on Puget Sound in Burien that was empty and in disrepair. Luckily, I had spent the 16 months prior in a van driving, so I didn't need much. And I just started. I ended up figuring out the website myself. It's a content management system called Drupal, and developed a multi-user website called Project 1000 that deals with a picture and 1,000 words. And I pretty much just spent all my time doing that 8, 10, 12 hours a day. For the first year, went home to Montana for Christmas, came back, and then the pandemic hit, and I felt really like that I needed to up my service game to feel productive. And I received calls. I was a participant in Night Watch as the calls to the intergroup number would get, forwarded to my phone for 4-hour shift once a month. And I kept on getting these communications from Night Watch folks, the good, kind, service-oriented Night Watch folks. And I thought, well, I can do some of these things maybe better. And so I kind of lightly insinuated and offered that maybe maybe this way would be better. So it was tricky. Probably stepped on some toes around, but I would always say that there's room to make some things we do better and easier for all people involved. And it was not the most graceful entry. Sometimes it's tricky to do that, but I would rather make things better or save someone's life than risk stepping on their toes, in service and in recovery. I'd rather be honest and take that risk. And some people took it better than others. You were one of those people that was a little bit reticent, but realized pretty quickly that you're like, oh yeah, this is better what you're doing. So yeah, I came in as a caller and ended up being an admin or something like that. So.
Exactly, which is great. And, during the pandemic, you said, finding a way to up your service game, which has been real hard for people. I mean, especially in the beginning when there were like no meetings going on and except for the rogue rebels, on the fringes of King County that, that kept going. But yeah, that to up your service game. And, but then it became a very integral part, and we, to Intergroup and how we manage Night Watch. And I have to say, now that people have gotten used to it, it's streamlined and running much better than it did before. or more accessible, right? So we appreciate your service
It was a
for
pleasure to
that.
be a part of
But
it.
right, and but of course, I want to bring you back to what you had mentioned in the beginning, and I want to talk about your project. One of the things that I am interested in is talking to people about their spiritual experiences, their spiritual awakenings, and for you in particular, how your creativity, intertwines with the spiritual experiences. So, you talked about a website that you created. You've talked about your road trip that has culminated into a beautiful book that I have sitting here next to me, with your awesome photographs and your amazing wordsmithing, which has made this book called Road Trip by David Overturf. And it's an amazing book. I haven't gotten all the way through it, but what I have read is, you just have a really wonderful way of words. So I want to talk about creativity and what, you were how long have you been sober, first of all?
Sobriety date is December 14th, 1994.
Okay.
27 years. 27 years
So
and
you
counting. How about?
Okay, so you've been sober a minute, and but tell me, you haven't. I mean, you were creative when you were drinking too, right?
Yeah,
So tell me what the creativity. I mean, we all get a little creative when we're drunk, but I'm just saying, I'm just saying, the actual creative process. When you were drinking versus when you sobered up, and what it's like now.
well, I got sober technically when I was 23. It was just 2 weeks before my 24th birthday, so I'm not that big of a hero. But
Mhm.
I celebrated Christmas, my birthday, and New Year's in treatment. So that was fun. But anyway, when I it was my third time. I had tried AA twice. I was introduced when I was 17. I came back in on my own when I was 19, just after about 8 months after graduating from high school. I moved, 2 months after high school, I moved to Hollywood, California to pursue acting career to be the next star. Um, and that didn't happen, but I did go to my first AA meeting on my own because I hit bottom, my first pretty good one in Hollywood at age 19. Went to my first meeting on Hollywood Boulevard, and then I fled Los Angeles in that dream at the time, and went to Florida, and that was I was more miserable there, and then I went back to Montana to enter the acting program, the drama program. There's a good one at the University of Montana in Missoula. I entered there in 1991 and entered AA for the second time. After my first two quarters, they were on the quarter system still in the dorm. So summer of '91, I was in AA for the second time, and I just wasn't ready. There was a lot of people. I remember being at a party with young people a couple blocks off campus, and they were drinking their soda pop and eating their potato chips, and they had music on the boombox, and I just thought to myself, this is hell, and I'm not ready for this. And I just needed to feel more pain to feel like I really wanted something different. I guess it was still working for me in a
Hmm.
way, or I wasn't willing to do anything. So, 3 years later, whatever, I was just finishing up a Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting, and thankfully I had a mentor professor of mine, who the last I was graduating early somehow, and it was December of '94, and it was the culmination of a semester, the final acting class, and it was called Personal Performance, which dealt with confronting your issues as an artist and as a human being. And I knew at the beginning of the semester, he had us write out what we wanted to work on, and I was bold enough to write vices. And anyway, there was a suspicious sequence of events that happened to where I had my senior role, basically my thesis role, where I worked with a mentor, an advisor, and I had to write about it and talk about the process of creating a character and all that's entailed in that. And um, basically, I spent 4 years, really honing my alcohol and drug addict skills, but also coming to find that I was an artist, and I kind of wonder what it would have been like without it. But it just that's how my path went. Is that those two things kind of happened simultaneously, to where my bottom was not jail or DUI. Never went to jail. Never got a DUI. Never lost anything. Wasn't married. Didn't have a car. You know what I mean? I was, and that took a long time, for me, to compare stories and really convince myself that despite all that, I belonged here, and thank God there were people, especially men who were sober, that said, we'll raise our bottoms so to meet yours. You don't have to do this. You can qualify. If you think you qualify, you qualify. And so I came in here because I had a spiritual experience before I had a spiritual experience. And the first spiritual experience was coming to terms that I was an artist, that I was put on this earth with certain gifts that other people didn't have. I think everybody has certain gifts, and mine were especially, acting and writing and producing and directing and this kind of envisioning these worlds. And so I got sober for the artist. I realized that, one, I know I'm an artist, and two, I'm going to die and kind of betray these gifts that I think I was given, and even that sentence construction makes me a passive agent, that I was given these things. I didn't choose these things. These things were on board as I was born. And at the same time, I was really ranting I was a real atheist. So at the same time, I was the recipient of things from the cosmos, but I didn't believe in anything greater than me. So I was in a tough spot. And so my bottom was really concerned with art and the creation of art. And it's always been, kind of, removing all the impediments. The big one were active alcoholism and drug addiction, but there's still impediments, doubt and fear and all these things that kind of, the hurdles are smaller, but they're still there, and they still can rise up depending on what I'm doing. So it's all about creativity for me. I didn't come here to be miserable. I came here because I was. And I think, especially in the past couple of years, it's been an absolute gift to put this thing called Project 1000 into the website and design it myself somehow. Almost killed me. And then write the book about my road trip that kind of illustrates, the format and the power that can happen between a picture and exactly 1,000 words. So that's my pitch for creativity and how it applies to my story. It's all intertwined.
Well, 1,000 words is exactly enough. As I've read some of the examples on your website, and it's a perfect amount. But so a couple things. Um, First thing is, I've heard a lot of artists talk about how that they feel more creative when they're loaded, or drunk or whatever. And, it even talks about it in the big book that our most creative, come up with our most creative thoughts while drinking and, that sort of thing. But you're saying that you had to get sober for the sake of your artist within or the creativity. Otherwise, it was never going to be realized. So can you talk to that a little bit? I mean,
Yeah,
so clearly that wasn't your experience.
well, I, I, I think there's a difference between thinking you're an artist and actually just doing it. I had a good friend years ago tell me that, there's people who think they're writers and talk about writers and talk about writing. And then there's people who write, and there's people who get stuff done. So I think in my mind, I think I went on about a decade long kick where I thought I was Jim Morrison, or the reincarnation of Jim Morrison. And I'm really glad that I wasn't, because uh, he died 24 years ago in Dave years, at age 27, and a bloated kind of mess in Paris. I went to see his grave, that being said, in sobriety. So there's still a Doors man inside me. But um, I I wrote that I kind of look back and uh, I just can't even compare. I'm proud of some things that I wrote. I devised a new theater called the Sensual Theater as one of my final assignments in my undergrad. Instead of doing a report on a director or actor or a style of theater, I asked the professor, that same mentor professor, if I could invent a theater, which I did, and I wrote a manifesto for a thing called the Sensual Theater that deals with the liveness of the theater and actual sounds and smells and stuff like that. That stuff. There was some
Like
pretty inspired.
smell-o-vision.
What's that?
It's like smell-o-vision. You remember that from the 50s?
It's I think I just my contention was that we don't use live theater as we should, and we were gonna lose in 1994 out to VHS. We were gonna lose out to these things in these movie
Right,
theaters
right.
if we didn't capitalize on the liveness and all that can be the sensory availabilities that are not being utilized. But it's not. There's no comparison. I mean, I got out of treatment and I was just on fire and ended up, the first, God, 5 years at least were heavily influenced by poetry and beat poetry and open mic poetry, poetry slams. I ended up living in Chicago for 2.5 years where I was a substitute teacher so I could do theater and poetry slams and have some freedom. And then I ended up being a regular school teacher in the ghetto, the real ghetto of West Side Chicago, which is arguably as bad as the South Side. And I finished up a school year there and came back for another whole year. And anyway, I was really prolific until I kind of got into photography. After I lived in Costa Rica for a year and ended up writing. I barely had a camera, and then lived in New York City for about 14 months. I was there for 9/11, and I got a camera while I was there, and I ended up starting to take more pictures. And then I lived in. I tutored a kid from Spain. I mean, all these little suspicious events, and AA has been like the center of every place I've gone to. I helped open up a halfway house in San Jose, Costa Rica when I lived there, and had a sponsor in New York for when 9/11 happened, which was a really good time to have a sponsor, and then met a kid from Spain. And I went over and started a meeting in Spain, and I started taking more pictures than anything while I was over there, and I thought it was kind of cheating. Coming from a writing standpoint, these fancy at the time I went over there with a 3.3 megapixel camera, which is nothing compared to the quality that we have even on our phones today. But I thought, man, this is a really dangerous way and lazy way to kind of get through life, is that you just take pictures and don't, remember anything. I had, like I said, started writing more nonfiction accounts while I was in Costa Rica, and just capturing a place through words. So, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder about this newfangled digital photography thing. And as irony would have it, I returned from Europe after visiting. I went to the first English speaking AA conference in Hermione, Greece in 2003. And then I met a couple at a meeting in Paris who had a place in Ireland. And I told them I was going to go to Ireland for the All Ireland AA conference in 2003. So I stayed with these people and went to this All Ireland AA conference, and then, flew to Sweden and hung out with one of my buddies from Spain. He met me back in his homeland in Sweden. I went to a meeting in Stockholm, and I didn't understand a damn word, but I can say "Jag är en alkoholist," which is I'm an alcoholic in Swedish. It's fairly close. It might be,
Yeah.
but anyway. Yeah, it's been a ride, but there's no comparison between Dave loaded and thinking he's an artist and Dave sober, actually creating art. I'll say that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about just mention briefly about your this culmination of what this book is about. I mean,
Well,
I know it's
as I
about
was,
a whole bunch of stuff.
yeah. I mean, it's just,
Go ahead.
it's kind of a culmination of I was talking about Spain and that kind of, that change or whatever, as this camera came in and I started to take more pictures than I was writing. I felt that it was kind of a lazy way to not experience things, and instead of, being where you are, just take pictures so you can look later. So I had a former professor of mine, education professor, who at that time had been leading educational tours, and he was a little bit disillusioned with it because he was an educator, and these educational tours, quote unquote, would end up being kind of shopping sessions where they'd go to Italy, but spend a good part of the time shopping for clothes and whatever, or being in towns and going to malls, and it really kind of disgusted him. So I developed this thing called Project 1000 that was originally kind of a semester abroad program for university students, where ideally we could go to a Latin American or Spanish speaking country, because of I was certified in Spanish. I was a Spanish teacher in Chicago and Costa Rica, and English teacher there, but pretty fluent in Spanish, and lived in Costa Rica, lived in Spain. So we could go to these Latin American countries and maybe do a service project, and depending on what the participants' majors were, whether it's history or geology or whatever, they could do their independent study, and we could maybe do a service project, which I think is really important for the world. But when they come back for the last month or so of the semester back to the States, they could do whatever they had to do for their other pursuits and fields and subjects or whatever. But for me, for credit for this, they had to give me 10 pictures, and each picture would have to have 1,000 words attached to it. So they couldn't just take pictures and then not remember, not have notes, or not remember what it was like in that plaza or on that beach or in the Granada, in the Alhambra, Granada, Spain, or whatever it is in that village in Central America or whatever. They had to experience it, and they had to remember it, and give context to these pictures rather than just the image itself. So that kind of the company he was for was not interested in something like that, which kind of made sense to me. So that kind of went on the back burner in 2002, and I resurrected it during my road trip. Kind of planning for what was next for me. I knew at the time I left just after the election in 2016, and I was not particularly looking forward to returning to the United States at the time. And so I thought I better have something good because I need a treat when I get home, because this has all been a beautiful treat, and I don't really want to be depressed when I go home. So I kind of rekindled this, or rekindled itself, like, hey, I'll build a website and other people could write, and it's more than just a semester abroad program, So that was it. And I thought, well, I'll write a book. I'll give an example of this thing. I'll talk about my road trip, a picture in 1,000 words at a time, and it'll be the flagship publication of this thing called Project 1000. When people sign up, they retain the copyright, obviously, to their photographs and their writings, but it also states that that I can use their writings and their pictures for future publications, whether it be the best of 2022 or the best of Seattle authors or the best of students or whatever. Hopefully at some point, this was just a flagship. I'm the guinea pig here, but hopefully, in the near future, there'll be, periodical publications, whether it's quarterly or yearly or whatever, some sort of anthem or something. So yeah, this is a culmination of a lot. This is a culmination of my writing and photography, which has been, a good chunk of my life. I've kind of been a writer much longer than I've been a photographer, but I ended up supporting myself as a photographer for about 13 years here in Billings, Montana. I had a photo studio and an art gallery, and I just had this nagging thing that wouldn't go away. That's like, writing's better. So I really had a chip on my shoulder about the photography part, and I still kind of do. It's definitely an anti-Instagram thing. Project 1000, it is damn near an anti-photography thing. I'm much more interested in the stories behind pictures. We got enough pictures. The world is drowning in images. What is more interesting to me is getting the background, and it's asking a lot. I've been really struggling with getting people turned on to it, or to even write 1,000 words. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Lara. Because it asks a lot of people to stop, looking at images and look at your own images and write about them. Just write 1,000 words, write a little bit at a time. It's not 1,000 words at once. It can be, but it doesn't need to be. It can be a paragraph here, a half a page there, whatever. And all of a sudden, it becomes this really cool exercise of like, wow, I have more than I have room to say here. And then it becomes a writing exercise of what's the most essential thing I can say about this photo. And then there's this beautiful space where it's like, okay, there's too much I want to say about this. So I need to find another picture and do another one because I don't want, these are not the only words I want to give this person or this memory. So I need to have another picture. And then you can trick yourself. I kind of trick myself with this format into writing that book. I couldn't write a book. I don't know how to write a book, but I can write 1,000 words at a time, so it's a pretty cool process and platform.
So you mentioned, and yes, I mean, I think I joined the 1,000 project, and I think I stated something about having a New Year's resolution at the beginning of 2021, and I don't think you've seen anything from me yet. And so, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly.
That's okay.
I struggle with my creativity. I'm currently taking piano lessons, and so I dabble, but there's really nothing like it now. You've been in a black and white dark room now, haven't you, Dave?
No, I come to this from, I had a cheesy point and shoot 35 millimeter. And then I went from that to digital. So I've never been in a dark room, never took a photography class, never did any of this. And I have probably half a million photos.
Okay. That's why you're a photography skeptic. If you were to step into a black and white dark room, you would no longer be a skeptic of photography and the power of just an image. But that being said, you did mention, and gosh, 27 minutes, I don't know where the time goes, but you did mention that you were an atheist. Where are you now?
Oh, there's something. My it's a loose higher power, but it's definitely a higher power. I believe, early on it was kind of the Force from Star Wars. I remember that movie coming out, and I could dig into that. It had a pretty profound impact on me about something out there. And I didn't, thankfully, they were real smart, God as we understood him. So I at times don't appreciate the capital G on God or the capital H him or capital H-E, but there's something, and I don't have to debate that. I wonder, I sometimes wonder if 27 years lets me parse out some of that stuff, and it might be worth thinking about, newcomers, and if it really does turn people off, might be worth examining. But for me, when you say God, I can hear higher power or whatever, and I don't have to debate much. I just know that it's still something great. I think the universe is conspiring for us, and it's a loving power that I think we're bestowed with certain gifts and talents and that we need to share those. For me to have fear and doubt, been working with my sponsor on this, and that is really kind of slapping God in the face. To not do the work, to not be creative, to not be disciplined, to not do some things. And I'm hardly. I don't want to sound like I'm more prolific than I am, but I've come a long ways, and some days are better than others. But like I said, I don't wait to feel creative, really, to be creative. I think motion begets motion, and we got to start somewhere. So the book was a real blessing that it was almost like creating the website. Like I just knew I was going to get my ass handed to me for like 6, 8, 10 hours that day when I first started creating this website and learning Drupal. And it was some days like that for writing. I mean, writing is a different zone for me, and it always kind of makes me happy. But just knowing that despite how I felt, I had to do it, and that's kind of recovery, right? I mean, no one really likes doing 4 steps or 8 steps or doing some of this stuff, but the results are worth it, right?
Yeah, you got to put in the work. Yeah, God's not going to slide a cheeseburger under your door,
No.
as they used to say.
And it would be a real mess if he
So,
did. I mean, yeah,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, we already deal with a sense of entitlement. So,
right,
putting in work is absolutely imperative to get the rewards of sobriety.
right.
Well, Dave, this has been an amazing conversation, and I love talking to you. You're one of my favorite humans, so I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to us about creativity and spirituality. And you're an inspiration. And what is the website if I wanted to learn more about this 1,000? Where would I
Yeah,
go?
if just remember it's a ratio of a picture to 1,000 words, and ratios are signified by colons. So it's project one colon 1,000, project 1,000. You could just search for that online, and if you really want the address, it's
Great.
project one 1,000.com. You can't have colons in web addresses, but if you search for project one colon 1,000, those are all numbers, 1 to 1,000. You'll find it.
Well, I still have that New Year's resolution, and I have really great intentions.
There's still time, and thanks
Dave,
for the
thank
thanks for
you.
the invite.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it, and I think our first virtual interview went well. So I appreciate you being there for that. So I'll talk with you soon, friend.
Cheers. Thanks.